This is a CNA podcast.
Ho, ho, ho! The season to be jolly is upon us. That's right, Christmas is approaching, and while it's not exactly right around the corner, many of you may already be thinking about the year-end festivities. And that usually involves setting up your tree, going to parties, and exchanging gifts. Welcome to the Climate Conversations with me, Julie Yu. And while you might be excited as I am for the season of giving, Christmas can also be a time of excess.
There's no better time than Christmas to warm someone's heart. You know what to do. Add to cart.
It's a good time then to think about how you can have a more sustainable Christmas without dampening your holiday spirit. My guest today has some interesting ideas. Stephanie Dickson is the founder of media and events platform Green is the New Black. Stephanie, welcome to the Climate Conversations.
Thank you so much for having me.
While it's the most wonderful time of the year, it's also one of the most indulgent and consumer-driven time of the year as well. Just how bad is Christmas for our collective carbon footprint?
It really depends what we're looking at, but I think there's an increase in consumption, obviously packages flying all around the world, which has a huge impact on the environment, as well as food waste massively goes up at this time of year. I was looking up to find some stats for our conversation actually, and in Australia, a Melbourne University study actually found that food waste in December and January, because more and more people actually eat out and celebrate, it goes up by 40%, which is really quite shocking. And if every American family just wrapped 3 presents in reused materials a year, they would save enough paper to cover 45,000 football fields. And that's just America. You can't imagine how we expand that to the rest of the world as well. And Singapore, we import a lot of trees. In 2016, for example, we imported like over 14,000 live pine trees. And you have to think that obviously those trees are transported in aircon to actually get them here to keep them fresh. And so there's a huge amount of impact just so that we can have Christmas in the tropics.
Absolutely. So there's definitely a fine line between excess and enjoyment. So Steph, let's try to go through some of the issues one by one, take a look at what we can do, stay as environmentally and conscious and sustainable as we can this holiday season. Let's start with Christmas shopping. Shops are just trying to lure all of us in with fairy lights, Christmas music, sale sounds everywhere, and especially revenge spending on the rise post-pandemic. And where does one even start? What are some tips for conscious gifting?
I think one big thing is that it doesn't actually have to revolve around consumption and physical gifts. We can start to get a little bit more creative about how we gift to our family and friends. I think one big thing is sort of starting to take the materialism out of gift givings, looking at things like how can we do the gift of experience where both parties get to do something together. You can do so many different types of experiences or go on holiday. There are things like subscriptions to different things that you could have as like an ongoing gift to different publications, or so many different types of subscriptions now. You can get edible gifts where it can be, again, enjoyed together. So I think those are a few big ones that we can look at. But also, I actually think that we need to remove the taboos around buying pre-loved for our loved ones, because there's so much good stuff in the secondary markets, and you can get some really great deals, very high quality items, and it can basically be giving a second life to things. And so I think if we can start to remove some of the stigma around pre-loved or even re-gifting, because sometimes you might receive gifts and it may not be right for you, but it might be right for someone in your life. And so again, I think it's a beautiful thing to be able to repurpose and to give that to someone else. So I think there's a few more creative ways that we can look at this. And of course, if you want, it can be a beautiful opportunity. If you're already on your sustainability journey and you want to help to educate your family, gifts at Christmas time is also a great way to educate them and to gift them something that you think can help reduce something in their life, like a zero waste product or something you think would be really helpful for them. So it can also be quite a nice educational opportunity for families too.
How about for kids? What can bring them some carbon light Christmas cheer?
Well, it's the same thing for kids. A lot of the times they don't really need to know if something's brand new or not. You could even swap toys with different platforms nowadays. And again, just like thinking a little bit creatively, especially when the kids are young, they're not going to know if something's brand new or not. And sometimes they don't even really care about the gift. Sometimes they like the box more. Like I've seen this with a lot of friends before. As they start getting a little bit older, then I think it's finding what they're passionate about. And again, it can be this educational journey that you go on where where maybe they volunteer or maybe they donate some of their toys to children in need. And it can be something that feels good. And I think trying to create different traditions through experiences at Christmas time can be something really beautiful and can set the kids and the family on a completely different trajectory for what tradition looks like at this time of year.
Stephanie, so now let's say we got our gifts sorted. How do we wrap them up nicely? I mean, you mentioned hundreds of kilometers of wrapping paper and packaging are used and discarded each festive season. Share with me some tips to make our Christmas gift wrapping more eco-friendly.
Yeah, there's not really any need to buy new paper these days. I think a lot of us are still getting packages delivered to our homes, or if you're even using Red Mart in Singapore and those types of things, they all come in boxes. So you could just upcycle some of the things of what gets delivered to your house, like keep some of that packaging, especially if it's nice or it's been wrapped in paper already, you can just reuse a lot of that stuff. So I think you can upcycle and package things differently like that. You can also then get creative. If it's a paper box, you can draw something on it, you can paint, and you can make it something that could be quite fun, actually, like an upcycling project within the family. So if you have cloths or old t-shirts or whatever, you can cut them up and you can stitch them together or wrap them basically around or use bandanas. I don't know. It really depends. I used newspaper one year because I refused to buy new paper. And so we had newspapers lying around the house that my dad was using. So I just wrapped everyone's gifts in that. And of course, the family came up at Christmas. They're like, oh, well, one guess which gifts are from Steph. Like, so you really can use whatever's lying around your house. It doesn't need to be sparkling, shiny, new wrapping paper that also sometimes can be difficult to recycle. Using what you have, collecting the packaging that's already being brought to your house, and then just repurposing that is a great place to start.
No, there are plenty of options. Wow. And Steph, next up is the Christmas tree. Every Christmas occasion needs an impressive tree. And every year, my husband and I sort of debate on whether to buy a fake one or rent one, just enjoy the giant ones that we can see in the shopping malls. But the most, I guess, eco-friendly way is obviously go completely treeless. But how do we solve this sort of tree conundrum for those who feel it's a critical part of the celebrations?
Tradition runs really strong. So we don't want people to feel like they're sacrificing. We want people to feel like they're going on a slightly different adventure or doing things in a different way. And so I think it really depends where you are, but somewhere like Singapore, we really need to kind of look at the comparison of like, okay, if we were to buy a fresh tree every year, that means that tree has come from somewhere around the world. It's been shipped in cold storage and it's got to us fresh. And then it lasts for maybe 2-3 weeks and then it dies, but it most likely does not get recycled here. So you need to look at that footprint versus, okay, if I buy a reusable tree that I'm going to use for the next 10 years and I'm okay with that, and then you can keep using the same reusable tree and you can do some comparisons. Like it really depends like where the trees come from, and there's a lot of factors to consider, but those are kind of the decision trees that you can be going through to actually look at how you want to do it. And then I think buying a secondhand one is a great way to go if you're going to get reusable, using things like Carousel, or there's so many marketplaces on Facebook now, and I've already been seeing a lot of people selling their trees. So again, you're like giving a reusable tree a second life. Most of the time they're in great condition because they're plastic and you can basically just do them up. And then I think reusing all your Christmas decorations. Like my mom has the same Christmas decorations that she's had since we were little kids, and that's fine. Again, it's just tradition. You know, you don't need to buy a whole new set of decorations every year. You can invest in nice ones that you love, or she actually did something really nice. Every year she bought us a new decoration for Christmas, and then when we were 18 or when we moved out of home, then she gave us all of the decorations she's collected. So then we have an instant collection. I think these types of things are also really beautiful. Or you can also Google how to upcycle a tree, and you can create your own tree with your family out of waste, which, I mean, that's taking it to another step, which it may not just be green, but again, there's fun family ways that you can do things.
Stay tuned and you'll hear Stephanie sharing more tips about how to plan a greener, more sustainable, and fun-packed Christmas party this year.
Hi, my name is Steve Lai.
And I'm Teresa Tang.
And we are the hosts of the new podcast, CNA Correspondent.
From New York to Bangkok, join us as we kick back and chat with our colleagues across the globe about the latest news developments.
Look out for our weekly episodes wherever you get your podcasts.
Stephanie, so if, let's say we're planning a party for Christmas or New Year's Eve, what do we plan, buy, and serve if we want a party to be more green than just a mistletoe?
So I think food is such a huge part of the festive season. Having more plant-based options, and that really helps already. So just getting creative. Google's such a great friend in these situations where you can Google lots of different creative ways to have festive food that's maybe vegetarian or vegan. So you can kind of lighten the load in that way. And again, just get creative and offer different things. Obviously, a lot of people during this time would use reusables if they're having people over, but just use what you already have in your house. Like use plates and crockery and cutlery and just reduce the waste that side. And then I think the food waste part is such a huge thing that we can't ignore as well. As I said at the beginning, there's so much food waste that's created this time of year. So if you do over cater, then just think about, okay, who might like this in my neighborhood? If you're staying in like an HDB complex, maybe there's some families or some elders that you know that might love a little takeaway package from some leftovers that you have, or you can donate some things as well to local charities like Food from the Heart or Food Bank Singapore. I mean, they have different requirements, but you could actually just take that little bit of extra time to figure out, okay, if we have a lot of food waste, who can I donate it to? And that again could be something nice that you do with the family. Like once you've enjoyed your meal, and maybe the next day you could then take it and donate it somewhere or give it to neighbors and that kind of thing. So I think, again, it's just this beauty of spreading joy. And I think it can be something that's really enjoyable and that can create new traditions for families.
And parties also mean a lot of disposable and the plastic cups, plates, straws that are so convenient for hosting these parties. Any ways to reduce those?
Yeah, just use reusable crockery. I don't think there's any need to have single-use items when you have everything in your house. If you don't have enough to cater for everyone, ask them to bring their own plate and cutlery. You know, a lot of events do this nowadays. Quite often they tell people to bring their own container and bring their own cutlery. And you can do this. And actually, this is a great way to avoid food waste, because if you say everyone please bring a container, they can also take a care package home with them after the meal. That's another way to just, you do less washing, they bringing reusable containers, and they're taking it home with them anyway. So you're solving a lot of problems at once.
Absolutely. So, Stephanie, we've spoken about what we as individual like consumers can do to have more sustainable festive season. If you look at businesses and companies, what role can they play in reducing waste, excess during the holidays?
Yeah, I think if companies are really wanting to get creative about this, obviously a lot of them do end of year parties. This is another great opportunity to actually have plant-based options. And actually Singapore is great because there's so many alternatives here for food, and you can get very creative with menus. So that could be one aspect. Again, not using disposables, using crockery if you're catering something. I think the decorations is another big part. So making sure that if you're decorating the office, that you actually reuse them next year. And so that they go in a box somewhere and they can be reused next year. It's nice to have the festive look and feel, but just make sure it's not just all going to end up in trash afterwards. So I think there's certain things like that. And then I think also gifting, like a lot of corporates gift, and there's ways to do that more sustainably. So instead of buying or getting stuff printed and branding and giving someone a cup from a company that they probably don't want, or a t-shirt, you could offset people's carbon by doing a beautiful tree project or a mangrove restoration project, and all of the employees or all of the clients can receive something that's more creative that actually offsets their carbon for the year. And so I think there are other ways, more creative ways to do gifting or supporting local brands. There's some incredible local brands that are ethical and sustainable in Singapore, especially around food or other beautiful items that can be created and used, and then you're supporting the local ecosystem. So I think there are definitely more creative ways to gift, and this can all be found very easily by searching. This is not complicated information to find these days, which is good.
So, Steph, before I let you go, if you could change just one thing about how we celebrate Christmas, what would that be?
Oh, what an interesting question. If I could change one thing, I think I would make more people eat more vegetarian food, to be honest. I mean, my family, half of us are vegetarian, and we do cannelloni at Christmas time, which is such a festive colored dish because it's all the right colors. It's green, white, and red. But I guess the other thing would just be to rethink how you do your Christmas traditions and try to create new ones, because you can do that at any point. And I think maybe letting go of some of the ones that are overconsumption, overindulgence, and creating more joyful new traditions with family could be something really beautiful that we could all do as part of a new adventure.
Thank you so much for your time, Stephanie. I've learned a lot. Thanks for the great tips for a greener Christmas. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
While most of us around the world are singing about a white Christmas, we've heard how, with just a bit of thought and effort, going green at Christmas may not be as difficult as it might seem. On that note, I wish you and your family a very happy holiday season. We'll be going for a season break and we'll be back in January, so do keep a lookout for our new episodes then. The team behind the Climate Conversations is Jacqueline Chan, Joanne Chan, Tiffany Ang, Daniel Lee, Crispina Robert, and me, Julie Yu. Do like and subscribe to this podcast. Thank you for listening.